The stars had been quiet for a long time. Admiral Vexthar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the endless darkness of space. His ship was bigger than most cities. It carried enough weapons to destroy entire planets. Behind him, 47 other warships waited in perfect formation. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Collective had ruled the galaxy. They did not rule through politics or trade. They ruled through fear. When a new species developed space travel, the Collective would send Admiral Vexthar and his fleet. They would demonstrate their power once. Usually that was enough. The demonstration was always the same. They would choose a small target, a mining station, a research outpost, a colony ship. Then they would destroy it completely. No survivors, no mercy, no second chances. After that, the new species would understand their place in the galaxy. Vexthar had done this 47 times. 47 species now served the Collective. They paid tribute. They accepted limits on their expansion. They never challenged Zephyrian authority. The system worked perfectly. Today would be number 48. His communications officer, a young Zephyrian, named Kethvar, approached with a datapad. "Admiral, we have received the intelligence report on the new species. They call themselves humans." Vexithar took the pad and read quickly. The humans had developed faster than light travel only recently. Their technology was primitive but functional. They had colonized only their own solar system and a few nearby worlds. Their military consisted of small exploration ships with basic weapons. "Standard classification?" Vexthar asked. "Category 7, sir. Low threat, small population. Limited resources," Vexthar nodded. Category 7 was the lowest threat rating. These humans would be easier to handle than most. He had dealt with far more dangerous species before. "Where are they sending their representative?" he asked. "Kepler's Gate, sir. The neutral station, at the edge of their space." "Good. Send word to the station commander. We will arrive in 3 days." Kepler's Gate was a small trading station built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. It served as neutral ground for first contact meetings. The station was run by the Collective but officially remained independent. Many species had first learned of their new masters here. When the human ship arrived, Vexthar was not impressed. The vessel was small and boxy, with visible welding marks on its hull. It moved slowly and clumsily compared to Zephyrian ships. The humans were clearly new to space travel. Ambassador Linda Carter was the first human Vexthar had ever seen. She was shorter than most Zephyrians, with pale skin and brown hair tied back in a simple style. She wore a dark blue uniform with no decoration except small metal pins on her collar. Behind her stood Captain Jake Morrison, a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes. "Welcome to Kepler's Gate," Vexthar said in the common trade language. "I am Admiral Vexthar of the Zephyrian Collective. You are now entering civilized space." "Linda," Carter bowed slightly. "Thank you, Admiral. I am Ambassador Carter of the United Earth Government. This is Captain Morrison. We are pleased to meet you." Her voice was steady, but Vexthar could sense her nervousness. "Good." Fear was the beginning of wisdom. "Your species has developed space travel," Vexthar continued. "This brings you under collective authority. The terms are simple. You will pay tribute of 20% of your total production. You will accept limits on your expansion beyond your current territory. You will provide military support when requested. In return, the Collective will protect you from external threats." Linda Carter listened carefully. When he finished, she asked, "May I have time to discuss these terms with my government?" Vexthar's eyes narrowed. This was always the first sign of trouble. Species that accepted their place immediately were easy to manage. Those that asked for time to think were more likely to resist. "You may have 24 hours, he said. "However, I should make clear that these terms are not negotiable. They are a statement of reality." "I understand," Linda Carter said. "We simply need time to prepare our people for this new relationship." Captain Morrison spoke for the first time. "Admiral, could you tell us more about the Collective? Our people will want to understand their new neighbors." Vexthar smiled. This was the perfect opening. The collective maintains order throughout the galaxy. We have done so for 3,000 years. 47 species have joined us voluntarily after understanding the benefits of cooperation. And if they had not joined voluntarily? Morrison asked. Then they would have learned about the costs of resistance. Fortunately, all 47 species chose wisdom over foolishness. Linda Carter and Captain Morrison exchanged a quick glance. Vexthar noticed but was not concerned. All new species went through the same process. First shock, then denial, then acceptance. It was natural. We will return to our ship and contact Earth, Linda Carter said. We will have an answer for you, tomorrow. After the humans left, Vexthar returned to his flagship. He was not worried about their decision. The humans had seen his fleet. 48 massive warships filled the space around Kepler's gate. Even their primitive sensors would tell them how outmatched they were. But just in case, he began preparing the demonstration. His intelligence officers had already identified the perfect target. Titan Base was a human mining colony in their home system. It had a population of 800 people, including families. It was large enough to make an impression, but small enough to destroy quickly. The next day, Linda Carter returned with Earth's answer. Vexthar was not surprised by what she said. Admiral, my government needs more time to consider your terms. We request a formal diplomatic process with extended negotiations. Vexthar shook his head. Ambassador Carter, I believe your people do not understand the situation. Perhaps a demonstration would help clarify things. What kind of demonstration? Captain Morrison asked. The kind that 47 other species have witnessed. It is educational. Vexthar gave the order that afternoon. 10 of his warships jumped to the human solar system. They surrounded Titan Base and demanded surrender. When the colonists asked what they had done wrong, the Zephyrian commander explained that they had done nothing wrong. They were simply a lesson. The attack lasted 15 minutes. When it was over, Titan Base was gone. 800 humans were dead, including 200 children. The Zephyrian ships recorded everything and broadcast it throughout human space. The message was simple. This is what happens when you ask for time to think. When the footage reached Kepler's gate, Linda Carter watched it in silence. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. Captain Morrison stood beside her, his hands clenched into fists. Now do you understand? Vexthar asked. Linda Carter looked at him with eyes like winter storms. Yes, Admiral. We understand perfectly. Good. Then you accept our terms? We need to return to Earth immediately, she said, to make arrangements. Vexthar nodded. You have 1 week. After that, we will assume you have chosen resistance, and we will act accordingly. The human ship left Kepler's gate that same day. Vexthar watched it go with satisfaction. Another species had learned their place. In a week, the humans would return with their surrender. Then there would be 48 species in the collective. He did not know that he had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. He did not know that humans were different from the other 47 species. He did not know that some species, when pushed beyond all limits, do not surrender, they explode. The silence was the first thing Admiral Vexthar noticed. For 3 days after the Titan Base demonstration, human space went completely quiet. No ships moved. No communications came through the diplomatic channels. No distress calls or angry messages or desperate pleas for mercy. Just silence. Vexthar had expected immediate contact. Usually, after a demonstration, the target species would send frantic messages within hours. They would beg for terms. They would offer tribute. They would promise complete obedience if only the collective would spare their worlds. The humans did none of this. Sir, Communications Officer Kethavar approached with a worried expression. We are still receiving no response from human space. Our monitoring stations detect very little activity. Perhaps they are in shock, Vexthar said. Some species take longer to accept reality than others. But privately, he was beginning to feel uneasy. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never encountered complete silence. Even the most terrified species sent some kind of response. On the fourth day, Captain Jake Morrison's ship returned to Kepler's Gate. Vexithar met him in the station's main conference room. Morrison looked older than before. His face was hard, like stone. His eyes held something Vexithar had never seen in the eyes of a defeated enemy. "Captain Morrison," Vexithar said, "I trust your people have reached a decision?" Morrison sat down slowly. "We have reached a decision, yes. And we reject your terms." Vexithar blinked. "I am sorry, but I do not think you understand. Did you not receive the footage from Titan Base?" "We received it." Morrison's voice was completely calm. "Every human in the galaxy has seen it. 800 of our people, 200 children. We understand your message perfectly. Then surely you realize that resistance is pointless. Accept our terms and no more demonstrations will be necessary." Morrison leaned forward. "Admiral, let me make sure I understand your position. You murdered 800 innocent people to frighten us into surrender. You killed children to make a point about power. I ended the lives of 800 individuals to save the lives of millions more who would have died in a war." Vexithar corrected. "It was an act of mercy." Morrison stared at him for a long moment. "Mercy. Yes. Quick death for a few prevents slow death for many." Morrison stood up. "Admiral, you have made one critical error in your calculations." "What error?" "You assume we fear death more than we hate you." Before Vexithar could respond, Morrison walked out of the conference room. His ship left Kepler's Gate an hour later. Vexithar watched it go with growing confusion. He had dealt with defiant species before, but they always made threats or demands. Morrison had simply stated a fact and left. Back on Earth, President Nicole Barnes stood before the Global Council in Geneva. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every nation. Outside, crowds had gathered in every major city on the planet. The footage from Titan Base played on every screen, every channel, every communication device humanity possessed. "My fellow humans," President Barnes began. Her voice was steady, but everyone could see the fury burning in her eyes. 4 days ago, an alien fleet murdered 800 of our people. They killed children, they killed families, they killed innocent minors who had never hurt anyone. The hall was completely silent. They did this to frighten us. They did this to make us bow down and accept slavery. They want us to pay them tribute. They want us to limit our expansion. They want us to become servants." She paused and looked around the room. "They wanted to show us power. We are going to show them fury." In the back of the hall, Commander Alex Reed watched the president's speech on his tablet while reviewing classified documents. Reed was Earth's top military strategist, a small man with sharp eyes and a mind like a computer. He had spent the last 4 days working without sleep, and his work was almost complete. Beside him sat Dr. Maria Santos, the theoretical physicist who had designed humanity's most advanced weapon systems. She was young for such an important position. Barely 30 years old, but her genius was undeniable. She had been crying earlier while watching the Titan Base footage, but now her tears had dried into something harder. "How long?" Reed asked quietly. 6 months, Dr. Santos replied. "Maybe 5 if we skip safety testing." "Skip it. How many ships can we convert?" "Every ship we have. Military, civilian, cargo haulers, research vessels. Everything that can mount a weapon." "And the special project?" Dr. Santos looked at her tablet. "The quantum cascade torpedoes will be ready in 4 months, but Alex, if we use them, there will be no going back. These weapons don't just destroy ships, they erase them completely. No debris, no survivors, no evidence they ever existed." Reed nodded. "Good. That's exactly what we need." President Barnes continued her speech. "The collective has ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years through fear. They have conquered 47 species by murdering innocents. They believe that because they have done this before, they can do it to us." Her voice rose slightly. "They are wrong. We will not pay tribute to murderers. We will not accept limits from child killers. We will not bow down to cowards who attack unarmed civilians. The crowd began to murmur and shift. Instead, we are going to war. Not a war of conquest. Not a war for territory or resources. A war to ensure that what happened at Titan Base never happens to anyone, anywhere, ever again. The murmur became a roar. We are going to destroy the Zephyrian collective completely. We are going to hunt down every ship that participated in atrocities against innocent people. We are going to make sure that the age of ruling through fear ends forever. President Barnes raised her voice over the crowd. They showed us what they call power. We are going to show them what we call justice. The Global Council voted unanimously for war. Every nation on Earth pledged their resources to the effort. Every shipyard began converting civilian vessels into warships. Every factory started producing weapons and ammunition. Every able-bodied person volunteered for military service. But the real work was happening in secret laboratories and classified facilities around the solar system. Dr. Santos led teams of scientists working around the clock on weapons that had never been imagined before. Quantum cascade torpedoes that could erase entire fleets. Plasma cannons that could cut through any known armor. Stealth systems that made ships invisible to all sensors. Commander Reed coordinated with military leaders from every human world. They studied 3,000 years of collective tactics. They identified every weakness in Zephyrian strategy. They planned operations that would have been considered impossible by conventional military thinking. The key insight came from Colonel Beth Turner, a naval tactician from Mars. They've never fought a species willing to accept total casualties, she said during a strategy meeting. Every species they've conquered was trying to minimize losses. We're not going to play that game. What do you mean? Reed asked. I mean, we're going to fight like every single human life is already lost. Every ship, every soldier, every resource. We're going to spend everything we have to make sure they can never do this again. Reed smiled for the first time since Titan Base. That's exactly right. They think they understand war. They're about to learn the difference between war and extinction. Meanwhile, throughout human space, something else was happening. Encrypted messages began reaching other species across the galaxy. The aquatic Delphini, who had been enslaved for 800 years. The insectoid Vrix, who had lost 3 colony worlds to collective demonstrations. The crystalline Altari, whose children had been used as hostages to ensure cooperation. The messages were simple. When we move, be ready. Most species ignored these messages. Some thought they were collective traps. But a few began to hope for the first time in centuries. A few began to remember what freedom felt like. A few began to prepare. On his flagship, Admiral Vexthar reviewed intelligence reports about human activity. His spies reported massive construction projects in human space, shipyards working day and night, military exercises involving thousands of vessels, resources being moved on an unprecedented scale. Sir, Kethvar said, intelligence suggests the humans are preparing for war. Vexthar laughed. Let them prepare. 48 of their largest ships against our entire fleet? The mathematics are simple. But sir, they appear to be converting civilian vessels as well. Some estimates suggest they might field several thousand ships. Quantity cannot overcome quality, Kethvar. Our ships are individually superior to anything they possess. When they come, we will demonstrate this fact. Then they will surrender, just like all the others. But late at night, alone in his quarters, Vexthar found himself thinking about Captain Morrison's words. You assume we fear death more than we hate you. What kind of species talked about hatred more than death? He did not know that he was about to find out. He did not know that humans were spending every resource they had on a single goal, the complete destruction of everyone who had participated in the Titan Base massacre. He did not know that mercy was no longer an option. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans stopped trying to minimize casualties and started trying to maximize devastation. 6 months after Titan Base, they would understand the difference between power and fury, but by then it would be far too late. 6 months after Titan Base, the humans struck without warning. Admiral Vexthar was reviewing supply reports when his communications officer shouted across the bridge. "Sir, multiple human fleets detected throughout collective space." Vexthar dropped his datapad. "What? How many ships?" "Thousands, sir. They appear to be hitting 17 different targets simultaneously." This was impossible. Human space had been quiet for months. Intelligence reports suggested minimal military activity. Where had thousands of ships come from? "Show me the tactical display," Vexthar ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of collective space. Red dots appeared everywhere marking human attacks. But these were not random targets. Every single attack was focused on ships and stations that had participated in demonstration massacres over the past 1,000 years. The humans were hunting. Captain Beth Turner stood on the bridge of her flagship Vengeance, watching enemy ships burn. Her fleet had surrounded the collective depot at Zerion Station, where Admiral Krilthex kept his demonstration squadron. These were the ships that had destroyed the Delphini colony of Reef's End 200 years ago. 8,000 innocents had died in that massacre. Today, Krilthex's ships would pay for it. "Target the flagship," Turner ordered. Full quantum cascade spread. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, looked up from his console. "Ma'am, they're requesting surrender terms." "Denied." "Fire." The quantum cascade torpedoes struck Krilthex's dreadnought and simply erased it. One moment, the massive ship was there trying to broadcast surrender signals. The next moment, there was empty space, no explosion, no debris. No evidence the ship had ever existed. The other collective ships at Zerion Station tried to flee. None of them made it to hyperspace. Turner's fleet had positioned themselves perfectly, using tactics that the collective had never seen before. Every escape route was blocked. Every hiding place was covered. Within an hour, the entire Zerion Station demonstration squadron was gone. Erased completely. Turner opened a communication channel to all frequencies. "This is Captain Turner of the Earth Navy. The ships you just saw destroyed were responsible for the massacre at Reef's End. This is justice, not conquest. Any collective forces not involved in civilian massacres may surrender and will be treated according to galactic law. Any forces that have murdered innocents will be erased." She closed the channel and turned to her navigation officer. "Next target, Commander Kim. According to our records, Admiral Thexanor's fleet destroyed the Vrix nursery ships at Hive 7. Where are they now?" "Patrol Sector Gamma 9, Captain. 3 days at maximum speed. Set course. No delays." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Commander Alex Reed led the assault on the collective shipyard at Forge Prime, where the demonstration fleets were built and supplied. His ships didn't just destroy the facility. They systematically dismantled it piece by piece, ensuring it could never be rebuilt. Dr. Maria Santos watched from the bridge of the research vessel Newton as her quantum cascade. Weapons performed exactly as designed. The torpedoes didn't just destroy enemy ships. They removed them from existence so completely that sensors couldn't even detect the energy signatures of their destruction. "It's working perfectly," she told Reed over the communication link. "But, Alex, I need to warn you about something. These weapons are having psychological effects on enemy forces. The complete erasure is causing panic among collective crews." "Good," Reed replied. "Fear is what they used against innocent civilians. Let them taste it themselves." Admiral Vexithar tried desperately to coordinate a defense, but the human attacks made no military sense. Instead of targeting strategic installations or supply lines, the humans were hunting specific ships and commanders. They had somehow obtained detailed records of every collective atrocity committed over 3,000 years. "Sir," Kethavar reported, "Admiral Morthek's fleet has been completely destroyed at the Altari crossing. Admiral Yendar's squadron was erased at the Delphini Sanctuary. Admiral Korthan's ships are gone from the Vrix border." Vexthar felt cold dread growing in his chest. "What about Admiral Zil-Noth's demonstration group?" "Destroyed 18 hours ago, sir. No survivors." "And Admiral Kexavar's squadron?" "Also destroyed, sir. The humans are systematically eliminating every ship and crew that participated in civilian pacification operations." The horrible truth hit Vexthar like a physical blow. The humans weren't trying to conquer collective space. They weren't even trying to win a traditional war. They were methodically hunting down and executing everyone who had ever participated in the murder of innocents. They were not conquerors. They were exterminators. "Sir," Kethvar's voice shook. "We have a priority message from the High Command. The humans have demanded a meeting. What are their terms?" "Unconditional surrender of all forces involved in civilian targeting operations. Complete disclosure of all demonstration attacks in collective history. War crimes trials for all surviving. Commanders and crews." Vexthar laughed bitterly. "And if we refuse? They say they will erase every collective military asset in the galaxy, starting with the homeworld defense fleet." To prove their point, the humans struck at the heart of collective power. A massive human fleet appeared at the edge of the Zephyr system, home to the collective capital world. But instead of attacking the planet, they began systematically destroying the 3 moons that orbited it. Commander Pete Collins led the moon-breaking operation from the carrier Retribution. His ships used modified mining equipment to tear the moons apart, creating massive asteroid fields that made orbital defense impossible. "Why are they destroying the moons?" Admiral Vexthar asked when he saw the reports. His science officer, a trembling young Zephyrian named Delkar, checked his instruments. "Sir, they appear to be creating a permanent asteroid storm around our homeworld. Nothing will be able to reach orbit safely." "For how long?" "Based on the orbital mechanics, approximately 300 years, sir." Vexthar stared at the tactical display. The humans were not just defeating the collective, they were ensuring that defeat would be permanent and complete. Even if collective forces somehow survived, their homeworld would remain under siege for centuries. But the most terrifying moment came when the human fleet broadcast a message directly to the collective high command. Commander Reed appeared on every screen in collective space. His face was calm, but his eyes held the promise of absolute destruction. "Leaders of the Zephyrian Collective," he began. "6 months ago, you murdered 800 of our people to demonstrate your power. You killed children to make a point about fear. You believed this would make us submit." He paused. "You were wrong. We do not submit to murderers. We erase them. You now have 2 choices: surrender unconditionally and face trial for your crimes against innocent life everywhere, or continue to resist and face complete extinction. To help you decide, we will demonstrate our power the same way you demonstrated yours. But unlike you, we will not target innocents." The screen changed to show a massive collective military base at the edge of their territory. Fortress Eternal was the strongest military installation in collective space, with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. As the collective leadership watched, a single human ship approached the fortress. It was small compared to the massive defenses surrounding it. The fortress opened fire with every weapon it possessed. The human ship ignored the weapon's fire completely. Its shields absorbed energy that should have vaporized any known vessel. It flew directly into the fortress's main reactor and detonated. The explosion created a temporary star. The light was visible from 17 different solar systems. When it faded, Fortress Eternal was gone. The human ship was gone. The entire military base was gone. But unlike the collective's demonstration at Titan Base, no civilians had died. The fortress had been evacuated. Every person inside had been given time to leave. The humans had waited until the base was empty before destroying it. Reed reappeared on the screen. "That is the difference between us. We destroy military targets. You murder children. We offer mercy to innocents. You use them as examples. The collective's reign of terror ends now. You have 48 hours to surrender. After that, we will begin erasing your homeworld defense fleet, 1 ship at a time, until you have no choice but to face justice. Choose wisely. We have already shown that we are willing to sacrifice everything to end your empire of fear. The question is, are you willing to sacrifice everything to preserve it?" The transmission ended. Admiral Vexthar sat in his command chair staring at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. But what orders could he give? How do you fight an enemy that treats their own lives as expendable? How do you negotiate with people who care more about justice than survival? For 3,000 years, the collective had ruled through calculated displays of overwhelming force. They had conquered 47 species by showing them the price of resistance. Now they faced a species that considered any price acceptable. If it meant the end of tyranny, they had taught the humans about power, the humans were teaching them about fury, and the lesson was just beginning. The 48 hours were almost over when something unexpected happened across the galaxy. The species that had been enslaved for centuries began to rise up. It started with the Delphini in the Coral Nebula. War Chief Reef High had received the human message months ago. When we move, be ready. Now he understood what it meant. As human fleets destroyed collective forces, the aquatic warriors struck at every collective facility in their territory. The child killers are falling, Reef High broadcast to his people. The humans have shown us that the collective can be defeated. Rise up, fight for your children, fight for your freedom. On the insectoid world of Hive Prime, Queen Zixara felt something she had not experienced in 800 years. Hope. Her people had been forced to serve as slave labor in collective factories. Their children had been taken as hostages to ensure cooperation. Now collective ships were fleeing her system, chased by human hunters. My children, the Queen spoke to her billions of subjects through their hive mind connection. The humans fight not for conquest but for justice. They erase those who murder innocents. They offer freedom to all who have suffered under the collective boot. Today we reclaim our worlds. The Vrix swarms erupted from their underground cities. The crystalline Altari used their technology to jam collective communications across entire sectors. 47 enslaved species struck at once, coordinated by human intelligence networks that had been built in secret over the past 6 months. General Pete Collins watched the rebellion reports from his command ship above the collective homeworld. The 3 moons were almost completely broken apart now, creating permanent asteroid storms that would siege the planet for centuries. But the real victory was happening throughout the galaxy. Sir, his communications officer reported, we have confirmation. Uprising successful in the Delphini sectors. Vrix forces have taken 12 collective colonies. The Altari have disabled the hyperspace network in the Outer Rim. Collins nodded. This was the plan from the beginning. Humanity could destroy the collective military, but only the enslaved species could truly free themselves. The humans had simply shown them it was possible. Any word from Admiral Vexthar? Collins asked. No, sir. The collective high command has been silent for 36 hours. On the collective homeworld of Zephyr, panic ruled the streets. The government buildings were surrounded by their own people demanding answers. How had the mighty collective, rulers, of the galaxy for 3,000 years, been brought to the edge of extinction in just 6 months? Admiral Vexthar stood before the High Council in their emergency bunker. Above them, human ships continued to tear apart the moons, dropping house-sized asteroids into the planet's atmosphere every few minutes. The constant thunder was driving the population to madness. Admiral, High Counselor Morthek demanded, you assured us that the human threat was minimal. You said they would surrender after seeing our power. I was wrong, Vexthar said simply. We all were. We assumed they were like the other 47 species. We assumed they valued their lives more than their principles. So what do you recommend? Before Vexthar could answer, the bunker shook as another asteroid struck the planet's surface. Emergency lights flickered. In the distance, air raid sirens wailed continuously. I recommend surrender, Vexthar said quietly. The council chamber erupted in angry shouts. High Counselor Yendar stood up. Surrender? The collective does not surrender. We are the masters of this galaxy. We were the masters, Vexthar corrected. Now we are the hunted. Do you understand what the humans have done? They have not just defeated our military. They have turned every enslaved species against us. They have made us the enemy of everyone. We once ruled. Then we fight to the end. With what? Vexthar asked. 70% of our demonstration fleets have been erased. Our remaining ships are scattered and demoralized. Our enslaved species are in open revolt. Our homeworld is under siege. He gestured toward the ceiling as another asteroid impact shook the bunker. The humans are not trying to conquer us, they are trying to erase us completely, and they are succeeding. High Counselor Del Nara, the oldest member of the council, spoke for the first time. What exactly are they demanding? Unconditional surrender. War crimes trials for all military personnel involved in civilian massacres. Reparations to every species we have oppressed. Complete dismantling of our military forces. And if we refuse, they will erase our homeworld defense fleet, one ship at a time, until we have no choice. Then they will probably erase us. The council fell silent. Outside, another asteroid struck, closer this time. How did it come to this? Del Nara asked. Vexthar thought about Captain Morrison's words at Kepler's gate. You assume we fear death more than we hate you. We made a fundamental error, he said. We believed that all species were like us, that they would choose survival over principle, that they would accept slavery to avoid death. And the humans are not like us. They would rather die fighting than live as slaves. More importantly, they would rather die fighting than let us continue to enslave others. Admiral Rebecca Hayes, commanding the human siege fleet, received the message at exactly 48 hours after the ultimatum. It was simple and direct. The Zephyrian collective surrenders unconditionally. Hayes had been prepared for continued resistance. Her ships carried enough quantum cascade torpedoes to erase the entire collective home fleet. Dr. Santos had even prepared a final weapon, a device that could destabilize Zephyr's sun, turning it into a supernova. But the surrender was real. Within hours, collective ships throughout the galaxy began broadcasting white flags and standing down. The rebellion by enslaved species accelerated as word spread that their oppressors had finally fallen. On Earth, President Barnes addressed the Global Council once more. The same hall where she had declared war 6 months ago was now filled with representatives from dozens of species. Former slaves had come to thank humanity for their freedom. 6 months ago, Barnes said, the collective murdered 800 of our people to show us their power. Today their empire is finished. Their fleets are destroyed. Their homeworld is under siege. Their enslaved subjects are free. She paused and looked around the room at faces from a dozen different species. But we did not fight this war for revenge. We fought it to ensure that what happened at Titan Base never happens again, to anyone, anywhere. The age of using fear to control others is over. The age of murdering innocents to maintain power is finished. From this day forward, any species that targets civilians will face the same fate as the collective. War Chief Reef High of the Delphini stood and spoke. The humans could have simply destroyed the collective and taken their place as rulers. Instead, they chose to free us all. This is true strength. Queen Zixara's translation device carried her hive mind voice to the assembly. The humans showed us that the strong should protect the weak, not exploit them. This is wisdom we will remember. The crystalline Altari representative, speaking through harmonic tones, added, the humans demonstrated that some principles are worth dying for. Freedom, justice, the protection of innocence. These are values that unite all thinking beings. President Barnes nodded. Today we establish the Free Worlds Alliance. Every species will have equal representation. Military forces will be limited and monitored. Most importantly, the deliberate targeting of civilians is now declared a crime against all sentient life. Commander Reed, now promoted to Admiral, stepped forward. The war crimes trials will begin immediately. Every collective officer who participated in civilian massacres will face justice. The species they harmed will judge them. What about those who surrender and cooperate? Asked the VRIX representative. They will be treated according to galactic law, Reed replied. We are not the collective. We do not murder prisoners or target innocents. Justice, not revenge. In his prison cell on Kepler's gate, Admiral Vexthar waited for his trial. He had been the architect of 47 conquests. He had ordered the deaths of millions of innocent beings over his long career. Now he would face judgment from the very species he had oppressed. But strangely, he felt something he had never experienced before: relief. The collective's reign of terror was over. No more demonstrations, no more murdered children, no more enslaved populations living in fear. The galaxy was free. He had spent his life serving an empire built on fear and maintained through atrocity. Now that empire was gone, erased by a species that valued justice more than power. The humans had shown the galaxy something the collective never understood. True strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others. They had witnessed human fury. But more than that, they had witnessed human justice, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of tyrants was over. The age of freedom had begun, all because 800 innocent people had died at Titan Base, and humanity had decided that some crimes could never be forgiven, only prevented from happening again. The humans had kept their promise. They had shown the collective the difference between power and fury. Power seeks to control. Fury seeks to liberate. The galaxy was learning that lesson well. 2 years after the fall of the collective, the galaxy looked completely different. Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood on the observation deck of New Kepler Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock peacefully at the trading ports. Delphini, waterships floated alongside Vrix Hive vessels. Altari crystal craft sparkled next to human cargo haulers. Where once there had been fear and oppression, now there was cooperation and trade. "Hard to believe it's the same place," said Commander Alex Reed, joining her at the viewport. He wore the new uniform of the Free Worlds Alliance with insignia representing all member species. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing," Hayes said quietly. "The trials, the executions, the complete destruction of their military. Was it justice or revenge?" Reed looked out at the peaceful scene before them. "Ask them," he said, pointing to a group of young Delphini swimming in the station's aquatic section. "Those children will grow up free. Their parents don't have to fear demonstrations or massacres, that's the answer." The war crimes trials had lasted 18 months. Representatives from every oppressed species had served as judges. The evidence was overwhelming. 3,000 years of documented atrocities, millions of innocent deaths, entire civilizations enslaved through terror. Admiral Vexthar had been among the first to face judgment. He stood before a tribunal that included survivors from every species the collective had conquered. When asked to explain his actions, he had said simply, "I believed fear was the only way to maintain order. I was wrong." War Chief Rifhai of the Delphini had spoken for many when he said, "You ordered the death of children to maintain your power. There is no excuse for this. There can be no forgiveness." Vexthar had been executed along with 300 other collective officers, but many others had been spared. Those who had served in support roles, who had never targeted civilians, who had surrendered immediately, were allowed to live under supervision. The galaxy was learning to distinguish between justice and revenge. Dr. Maria Santos walked through her new laboratory on Terra Station, humanity's first major space installation outside the solar system. Her quantum cascade technology was being adapted for peaceful purposes. The same energy that had erased collective warships now powered faster-than-light communication networks connecting every world in the Alliance. "Dr. Santos," her assistant called, "the Altari research team has finished the translation protocols. We can now communicate instantly with any Alliance world." Maria smiled. During the war, her weapons had been instruments of destruction. Now, they were tools of unity. The galaxy was connected in ways that had never been possible under collective rule. "Send a message to Earth," she said. "Tell President Barnes that the new communication network is operational." President Barnes, now in her second term, had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a leader who voluntarily gave up power. The Free Worlds Alliance rotated leadership every 2 years among member species. Humanity had led for the first term to establish the new government. Now a Delphini war chief would take over, followed by a Vrix queen, then an Altari crystal singer. Power shared is power that cannot corrupt, Barnes had said when proposing the system. No species should rule over others. Captain Jake Morrison, promoted to admiral after the war, now commanded the Alliance peacekeeping fleet. His ships patrolled the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors. When pirates threatened trade routes, Alliance ships responded. When natural disasters struck member worlds, Alliance rescue teams arrived within hours. But Morrison's most important duty was something that had never existed before: preventing atrocities. The Alliance had established a simple rule: any attack on civilian populations would result in immediate military intervention. Any leader who ordered the targeting of innocents would face the same fate as the collective officers. So far, they had only needed to intervene twice. Both times, the mere arrival of Alliance ships had ended the conflict. The galaxy remembered what had happened to the mighty collective. No one wanted to face human fury again. On the former collective homeworld of Zephyr, something remarkable was happening. The planet was being rebuilt by the very species that had been enslaved there. Delphini engineers were designing new water systems. Vrix workers were constructing housing complexes. Altari artists were creating memorials to honor the victims of collective oppression. Former High Counselor Del Nara, now elderly and working as a teacher, watched Delphini children playing with young Zephyrians in the rebuilt parks. She had been spared execution because she had voted against several massacre orders during her time in government. "Do you regret the way things ended?" asked Dr. Chen Wei, a human psychologist studying post-war recovery. Del Nara considered the question carefully. "I regret that it took the humans to show us what we had become. We convinced ourselves that fear was strength, that terror was order. We were wrong about everything. What would you tell young Zephyrians about the war?" "I would tell them that some species, when pushed beyond all limits, do not surrender. They explode. The humans exploded. They turn their fury into justice, and their anger into freedom for everyone." She pointed to the children playing together. "I would tell them that this is what strength really looks like. Not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to protect." The memorial at Titan Base had been rebuilt as the center of a new colony. 800 names were carved in stone, including the 200 children who had died in the collective's demonstration. But around those names were millions more. Every innocent victim of collective rule over 3,000 years. Ambassador Linda Carter, now elderly but still sharp, often visited the memorial with groups of young people from across the galaxy. She would tell them the story of that day when everything changed. "The collective thought they were teaching us about power," she would say. "They thought fear was the way to control others. They thought murdering children would make us submit. Instead, they taught us something else. They taught us that some things are worth any sacrifice. Freedom is worth dying for. Justice is worth fighting for. The protection of innocence is worth everything we have." The humans could have become the new rulers after the war. We had the strongest military, the most advanced weapons, the respect of every freed species. Instead, we chose to share power. We chose to build something better than what came before. New species were still being discovered in the outer regions of the galaxy. Each time, they were greeted not with demonstrations of force, but with offers of friendship and alliance. The galaxy had learned that strength came from cooperation, not domination. Commander Sam Rodriguez, now an Alliance admiral, often flew his ship along the old collective patrol routes. Where once there had been fear and oppression, now there was commerce and communication. Where once there had been enslaved worlds, now there were free peoples working together. "Do you think we'll ever face another collective?" his first officer asked during one such patrol. Rodriguez considered this. "Maybe. The galaxy is vast and power corrupts. But if another tyrant rises, they'll face something the collective never expected." "What's that?" "A galaxy that knows freedom is possible. A galaxy that has seen tyranny fall. A galaxy that remembers what happens when you push humans too far." He smiled. "They'll face not just human fury, but the fury of everyone who remembers what slavery felt like. That's a lesson that will last forever." Years passed. The scars of 3,000 years of oppression slowly healed. New generations grew up free, never knowing the fear their parents had lived with. The alliance grew stronger as more species joined willingly, attracted by the promise of equality and protection. Historians would study the collective war for centuries, trying to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible. How had one small species defeated a galactic empire? How had they turned total war into lasting peace? The answer was simple, though many found it hard to accept. The humans had fought not for conquest, but for justice. Not for power, but for freedom. Not for themselves, but for everyone. They had shown the galaxy that some species, when faced with absolute evil, would sacrifice everything to ensure it could never happen again. The collective had understood power perfectly. They had used it to rule through fear for 3 millennia, but they had never understood fury. They had never met a species that valued justice more than survival, that chose liberation over submission, that would rather burn the galaxy down than let tyranny continue. The humans had shown them the difference. Power seeks to control. Fury seeks to liberate. And liberation, once achieved, creates something tyrants can never understand. A universe where freedom is not just possible, but protected by everyone who remembers what it cost to win. The age of the collective was over. The age of the alliance had begun, and in the memorial gardens of Titan Base, 800 names reminded the galaxy that some prices are worth paying, and some fury is righteous. The humans had kept their promise. They had shown the collective what fury looked like, and the galaxy was free.